Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here, and in today's video I want to set the record straight about a couple of things that have been going on this week. We have a lot of news stories been coming out this week regarding the Epic Games Store, not just in the gaming press but in the mainstream media as well. Of course, we have IGN is writing multiple stories, PC Gamer writing multiple stories talking about how great the Epic Games Store is. But this week it's not just them, it's also been the mainstream press that has been singing the praises of the Epic Games Store, how they're trying to change the PC landscape and save PC gaming. I've seen articles from Newsweek and Forbes and even the New York Times hyping up the Epic Games Store this week. It's been a little bit suspicious to see all of these stories come out at once, and I want to discuss also specifically something that a vice president from Ubisoft said this week, and I want to sort of expose the nonsense and the hypocrisy from the propaganda being spun from that direction, and I want to counteract what he said with what a vice president from Bandai Namco said as well this week, which had the opposite flavor. And so we're going to discuss all that. Let's just get right into it today, because, like I said, it's been a little bit suspicious to see this week all of these news stories coming out. And we had some quotes this week from a vice president. Get this title. You'll like this. The Vice President of Partnerships and Revenue for Ubisoft. His name is Chris Early, and he had a quote this week. And this is sort of the premise of what I want to discuss this week. But what he said was, he said that the business model for Steam, as it stands today, he said it's unrealistic. The current business model they have, it doesn't reflect where the world is today in terms of game distribution. Now, what's really funny here is it seems like Steam's business model has been totally fine for the last decade when PC gaming has been on the upswing, just gaining numbers. Year after year, PC gaming has just been getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So Steam was a big part of that, and their business model has been just fine for a while. I'd also like to point out that in this article and in these quotes, you don't see this vice president for partnerships and revenue for Ubisoft saying anything about Sony or Microsoft or Nintendo, who also take the same revenue split that Steam does, the 70-30 split. So if that is actually an unrealistic business model for today's gaming distribution, then why is it not a problem with the console holders? With Sony, with Microsoft, with Nintendo? Why is that not a problem? Well, the real issue here is because of Uplay. If we go back several months, I did a video about this about 3 months ago, and then if we go even further back into February, you'll find an article on gamesindustry.biz which quotes the CEO from Ubisoft, and he explains that the reason why they made the deal with Epic is so they can increase exposure to Uplay. He came right out and said it. He said, with this deal, we saw an opportunity to increase player exposure to our own store, while at the same time supporting a partner that greatly values our games and provides better terms. So see, what happens is, Ubisoft saw an opportunity. They knew that the Epic Games Store, even then, back in February, and it's gotten worse, but even then, the Epic Games Store was not popular. And so Ubisoft banked on the fact that this was a way for them to drive more people to the Uplay platform, which for years has been sort of a laughingstock. It's one of these publisher-owned sites like the Bethesda launcher or EA. They have their own launcher. These are different services that they have, and Ubisoft has their own launcher called Uplay, which is just, it's not good. It's been a bit of the butt of the joke in the PC community for a long time. And even on console, we've had to deal with Uplay just never syncing up, not working right, things not working properly because you can't log into Uplay. You can't play your game sometimes because it won't log into Uplay. It's a joke. But Ubisoft saw an opportunity. They could not only get paid from Epic, they could get that money from Epic to put their games exclusively on the Epic Games Store and not on Steam, but then they could also get more people to use Uplay to get a game like The Division 2. And did this work out? It absolutely worked out. Because you see, when compared with the sales for The Division 1, The Division 2 sold about the same amount on the PC platform. I did a video about this back about 3 months ago, and Ubisoft during an earnings call said that the sales for Division 1 and Division 2 on PC were basically flat. On console, it was a slight depression on the Division 2 sales. A little bit less people were interested on console, but on PC, basically the same amount of people bought the game. However, the amount of people who bought the game, The Division 2, on Uplay went up 10 times the amount. 10 times the amount of customers went to Uplay. And of course, that's actually what Ubisoft wants, because when people buy the game on Uplay, even opposed to the Epic Game Store's great 88-12 revenue split, well, it's 100% revenue going to Ubisoft if people download and play the game on Uplay. And that is what they were trying to do. They made a cynical ploy. They made the cynical play, banking on the fact that people don't like the Epic Game Store enough that they would go and use Ubisoft's horrific launcher, Uplay. And the problem is that this absolutely worked. So Ubisoft now feels totally justified, and that's why you see the quote coming from their vice president of partnerships and revenue that the Steam model is unworkable. Well, that's just because they have Uplay to fall back on. Once again, you don't see them saying anything about the console manufacturers and the same revenue split. You don't see them saying that that's unrealistic. Now, running counter to all this, we had some other quotes this week from a vice president at Bandai Namco, the vice president for marketing in Europe, and he said something which was pretty eye-opening. While he did acknowledge that the Epic Game Store provides a better revenue split, he explains why his company isn't interested in taking it. And here's his quote: "The main focus for us is the consumer and the brand." The consumer. Get that? Remember how I've been talking about the Dark developer Unfold Games and how he did what's right by the consumer, and how people have been rewarding the developer and buying copies of the game, going out and supporting them because they're doing what's right? Well, here you have Bandai Namco, which, by the way, is a publisher. Whenever people start listing off publishers that do dirty business practices, you don't usually see Bandai Namco on that list. And they're a pretty big publisher in their own right. Dark Souls, they got Tekken, they got Soul Calibur. I mean, they've been around for a long time. They have some big franchises. They're no slouch when it comes to being a publisher. They got all sorts of different games, different franchises if you go down the list. Those are just some of the bigger ones. But what they said is, what the vice president said is, for each brand we decide what's the best way to satisfy the consumer and to engage with the widest audience possible. So for instance, I don't see any point in putting Tekken on the Epic Game Store. Wow, isn't that crazy? Let's read that again. We decide what's the best way to satisfy the consumer and to engage the widest audience possible. The main focus for us is the consumer and the brand. Isn't that crazy? And so when a company wants to do what's right by the consumer, it seems like they go to Steam. And when they want to do what's right for their own pocket, and they don't care about the consumer, well, then they go into the Epic Game Store. Yet we're told that the Epic Game Store is going to save PC gaming. Isn't that right? Well, it seems to me like PC gaming was doing just fine on its own. Like I said, it's been on a major upswing over the last decade, mainly helped along by Steam being the dominant platform. The Epic Game Store has not helped PC gaming. All it has done is caused a massive divide between the PC gaming audience and more developers. The battle lines have clearly been drawn. This has gotten really ugly. And now we see constant media pieces being written praising the Epic Game Store. It's gotten to the point where it's pretty obvious. Every mainstream site will always be on the side of the Epic Game Store. It's across the board. And what I say is, whenever all the mainstream media is agreeing on one thing, you should probably run screaming in the other direction, because they're probably trying to sell you a bag full of garbage. And of course, Tim Sweeney has been nothing but hypocritical this entire time. I've covered that in multiple videos over the past week or so. And again, this is such a simple conversation. You just do what's right by the consumer and they will reward you. Bandai Namco has a game coming out in a couple weeks, Code Vein. Now, this is a game that's been delayed for quite a while, but it's a game I'm looking forward to. And I'm probably going to pick it up. I'm probably going to pick that up over a couple other games next month that are coming out from bigger publishers who have not been doing the right thing by their customers. Because as we've seen in 2019, these publishers, for the most part, are just getting more and more shameless. They don't even care at all to hide what's going on. We see 2K. I mean, What's going on? First we had Rockstar with the casino, and now we got NBA 2K. I mean, give me a break. I don't know if you've seen the ad, but we had the YouTubers with their millions of followers sitting there acting like they're all excited to open loot boxes. I mean, come on. It's just getting ridiculous. They're just rubbing our noses in it now. So when we have the rare opportunity to point out a publisher or a developer that's doing things right, we got to take that opportunity. That's what I'm trying to do here today. Anyway, that's it for me, Coach Toolshed. I'll let you guys get back to your holiday weekend. At least here in the U.S., we have a holiday weekend. Let me know what you guys think about this video down in the comments below. Please subscribe. If you want to stay in tune with the channel headed forward, and as always, keep it turned to 11.